just touch their mom's faces. I've seen little kids that were not able to walk before. I've seen all the most beautiful stories around the world, and I want you to experience this here in Jordan. I don't care what type of scleral lens you fit. You can fit whatever type of scleral lens you fit, but please start using this technology. So my question to the group is, how many of you fit scleral lenses right now? And don't worry, it's not a right or wrong question. 2, 3, I'm not gonna look this way. 1, 2, 3. So we have about what? 2% of the room?
Yeah, maybe less than that.
Less than that, right? So please think about this. In the United States and Europe, if you were to ask that question, 95% of the doctors will raise their hand. Okay? So we're gonna change that. Because what I realized in the United States and Europe is that all those little eyes travel to North America and to Europe to get treated. Is that fair to your patient? Imagine how much a patient has to pay to travel to the United States to get a scleral lens fit. My ticket to come here was almost $3,000, right? And it was a 23-hour flight. So think about what your patient has to endure. First of all, they need to apply for a visa, right? Okay? Second, they need a hotel, not for 1 or 2 nights, for several nights. Third, they have to pay an American doctor. An American doctor is usually 3 to 4 times higher than what we find here in the Middle East. And a lot of those corneas would also travel into Saudi Arabia. So I started traveling to Saudi Arabia, educating the doctors. Come to find out, and I was talking to Dr. Nezar at lunch today, a lot of people in Saudi Arabia that travel there to get scleral lens fits are Jordanians. Okay? Go ahead. So the world needed this scleral lens technology. But a lot of these doctors, such as you, sometimes were afraid. Because when we show them a scleral lens, they usually ask me, Philippe, is this a lens or is this an ashtray? Because the lens is so big that sometimes the patient is like, doctor, put the lens first yourself and then I'm gonna put it on my eye. So when you ask a patient that is wearing Gazprom lenses, is he comfortable? Ask the patient if he's comfortable. And please, I encourage you to try a Gazprom lens in your eye. It is not comfortable. I've seen some of my patients wearing Gazprom lenses, and when they're gonna sneeze, they have to close their eyes, because sometimes what happens when they sneeze? The lens will pop out, right?
Where did those pictures from?
Next one. So a lot of the ophthalmologists benefited from this. Oh my God. The optometrists, they don't want to fit scleral lenses. I can do rings, I can do intacs, I can do surgeries, but we're not benefiting the patient. Scleral lenses will delay a cornea transplant. We have multiple patients, and Dr. Nezar and Dr. Bilal are currently working with the government and with the king to prevent patients to go to cornea transplant. Why? Because they can wear scleral lenses. They can have a great vision, great comfort, and we can delay the cornea transplant for 10, 15 years. If we do that, do you think the patient has a better quality of life? Yes, of course. Next one. So, Gazproms and scleral lenses have been evolving for years. The last one. Sorry, Bilal, you're too fast, my brother. So, this is what we used to fit before. Gazproms in 8.5, 8.6, 9.0. Gazproms started evolving to 10.5, 11.5, 12.5, and then we changed to other technologies. So now, in order to fit irregular patients, we have several technologies, such as corneal lenses, piggyback designs, which is a soft lens and a Gazprom on top, hybrid lenses, which is a combination of both lenses, and of course, the scleral lens that we're going to talk about today. So, does everybody here know the anatomy of a scleral lens? Do you know how it works? No? Okay, this is great. This is the feedback that I need. Let's wake up. It's exactly what I want to hear. No, I don't know. They're not wrong answers. Okay? So the anatomy of a scleral lens, first of all, where does the scleral lens land? There you go. It lands in the sclera. So we don't touch what? The cornea. My God, I'm loving this public. Okay, I'm loving this audience. This is exactly what I want. So, do we have more nerves in the sclera or the cornea? More sensitive. That's great, Doc. So, if we can jump that cornea, don't touch it, land in the sclera, and don't have any lid interaction, the patient, when he blinks, he's not going to feel the edge of the lens, right? So he's going to be more what? More comfortable. My God, I love you guys. Okay, so next one. So those corneas don't want to be touched. If they could run, they will do so, but they can't because they're attached to the body. But, so those corneas don't want to be touched, they don't want to be bothered. How can we stop bothering those corneas? We can become an architect. We can create a circus tent. We're going to create a circus tent, and that tent is going to be called Scleral Lens. Scleral lenses are not called contact lenses because they don't have what? Come on, we were doing so good. There you go. So they're called scleral lenses. They're not called contact lenses because they never touch the cornea. If they touch the cornea, it's a contact lens. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to build this tent, and sometimes we're going to have giraffes. Sometimes we're going to have elephants, and those giraffes and those elephants and those circus people that work in the circus are called keratoconus, they're called PMD, they're called transplant. So basically, please remember, when you're fitting those patients, remember, we have to build a tent over it so we don't touch that elephant and we don't touch that giraffe. So why are scleral lenses better? Go to the next one, Pilar. So scleral lenses are better because they land specifically in the sclera. There's no lid interaction, okay? You have the own patient refractive natural tears, and we have high decay materials. So imagine if this is a topography, right? Imagine this is an irregular cornea, and we're gonna put a lens on top of this, and between this irregularity, we're gonna have what? A meniscus of the patient's own natural tears. So we're gonna create a refractive system for that patient at the same time we're restoring his vision with natural tears. And tears have what? Oxygen. There you go. Great. Next one, please. So, in order for us to fit scleral lenses, we have to use special Gasper materials. So we use Boston XO2 and Boston XO in order to manufacture scleral lenses. Why do we use those materials? Next one. We use those materials because they have great oxygen permeability. The surface is great because it wets. Flexure resistance, because remember, the patient is going to blink and he's going to exercise pressure on that lens, okay? It's hard, it's a hard lens, and it absorbs UV. Next one. So the materials that we use, sometimes I get asked this question multiple times. So, are those materials good for scleral lenses? Yes, they're great. Why? Because we have a high decay, 141 decay over T and 100. So they pass oxygen to the cornea. Next one. So this is how the scleral lens looks. Okay? The own natural patient tears, the scleral lens, and the eye lens. So every single time that patient blinks, he's not going to feel the edge of the lens. Next one. That's a quick question. You ask me again? What's that?
Yeah. Why that they combine these two materials of Boston?
What do we do?
Why they combine these two materials, exactly two materials? Because one has more decay over T and the other one less.
So Boston XO is the older material. That was the one with 100 decay, right? And because we're gonna have a meniscus, okay, of the patient natural tears and a plastic called Boston. So the company developed a new material called Boston XO2 so that you can have even more oxygen. And They develop a new material for that. Yeah, a
So
new
they
one.
combine together.
Correct. And in fact, right now, Contamac has developed a new material called Infinitive. And that has, I think, 181.
200. The
Yeah.
one is infinite 200.
Yeah,
180, exactly.
181 to 200, something like that. But it's one of the highest, or I think it's the highest.
It's the highest.
It's the highest.
Yes.
It's the highest DK material in the world right now.
When the lens used to be an RGB material attached to the cornea, so it's okay if the DQ over T is 50 or 40 because the lens is over the cornea. Now with Scleral lenses, we do have the lens tier, the reserve part, and then the lens itself is thicker. So we need more DK materials in order to have the oxygen dissolve at the adhesive surface of the lens and then gets to the cornea.
You see what I hire him? He's also my driver. So imagine, it's just like in the United States we say that it's just like sending your patient's eye to a spa. Believe me when I tell you this. Sometimes, and I was in Dr. Nesser's office, I'm living in Jordan almost. I was here last month.
He's applying for Jordanian citizenship. by the way.
I'm looking forward to it. So, and we put a scleral lens to the patient, and the patient even asks us, is the lens in? Because sometimes the patient doesn't feel the lens. It doesn't feel the lens. So it's just like sending the patient's eye to a spa. Okay? Next one. So, what type of indications can we do for scleral lenses? For surgery, corneoptasia, keratoconus, PMD, regular astigmatism, and one of the most important ones is the ocular surface disease. And I really want you to work with the ophthalmologist in your area, because the patients that have ocular surface disease, they're patients that have suffered a lot. I've seen kids, 14 and 15-year-old kids, that try to kill themselves multiple times, because once they open their eyes, they feel like the eye is burning their entire body. And I'm going to show you some cases later on from the Pacific University about Sjogren syndrome and Steve-Johnson syndrome, and you're going to feel the pain that these patients experience on a daily basis. So please, take advantage of this ocular surface disease and work with the ophthalmologist in your area in order to treat those type of patients. So, like I was saying, they're not only lenses for regular corneas, they're lenses for post-PRK, LASIK, because what happens after we have this type of surgeries? Usually, dryness. So, how do we prevent dryness? Remember this movie, Toy Story? Remember? What was his name? I think it's Buddy or something like that? Buzz. And he thought that he couldn't breathe in our air, right? So he had to use that shield. So that's basically what we're doing. Imagine if this was a cornea. We're basically shielding that cornea from the environment. So, again, ocular surface disease, chemical burns, Steve-Johnson, graft versus host disease, Sjogren syndrome, and all kinds of problems with ocular surface diseases. Next one. So after we started talking about this, and you started seeing my passion about scleral lenses, a lot of you started fitting scleral lenses. And it made me so happy. Because doctors started becoming superheroes. And this was in Saudi Arabia, okay? And unfortunately, I didn't know with the GCC dress, you have to wear boxers and clothes underneath. And I went out of my hotel wearing nothing, and my distributor sent me back because they could see everything. So, I've spoken on Vision X. I've gone multiple times to the SOS in Saudi Arabia, and we have changed lives with these little pieces of plastic. So these pieces of plastic are giving vision back to your patients. So these kids, we went in Kenya, and this is Dr. Justine Sirji from Canada, and this is the first time the Masai Mara indigenous people were seeing a cell phone. For the first time. And those patients have a lot of keratoconus in the village. And one of the village, the king of the village, which is this guy over here, his wife had keratoconus, and she was never able to see him. We put scleral lenses on her, And the first thing that she said, laughing, is that I didn't know my husband was so ugly. So it could work either way. You can change the lives, or you can get a lot of divorces. Next one. So we traveled to 70 plus countries in my career, changing lives with these pieces of plastic. India, Africa. This was actually in Lebanon. Lebanese girls learning about scleral lens fits. Go ahead. In India, this little kid was kicked out of school because he couldn't read. And now this kid is 2020, and now the kid is going to the university. So we can literally change lives with little pieces of plastic. And this one is a Moebius syndrome patient. This is one of the best ophthalmology clinics in Latin America. And she could not read, she could not go to school. Moebius syndrome, some people think that they have problems, brain problems, or they're slower, but they're not. They just have problems with their eyes. Okay? And they cannot see well. The eyes are usually static, they cannot move them. So this patient was at 2,400 counting fingers, and now the patient is 2040. And this in Spanish means changing lives. So what we also do, and this is a program that we have that you can apply, is that for patients that cannot afford the scleral lenses, if you give me your time and your hands, we will change the life of that patient completely free of charge. Okay? Because God, Allah, He knows what we're doing here. And He's watching what we're doing. And I want to experience this in Jordan with you guys. Next one. Mexico. Please get used to this. Get used to patients hugging you and crying. Every single time that I go to Latin America, I usually end up the conference and the patients are hugging me, and sometimes I have to bring chickens to my hotel. Live chickens. Because they what? They give me gifts. They give me oranges, they give me avocados, things they grow in their own farms. Unfortunately, I cannot bring chickens to the United States, so they usually stay in the country. So the newest technology with scleral lenses, next one, is that we can fit any type of cornea. We can fit normal corneas, we can fit PMDs, we can fit keratoconus, we can fit transplants, we can fit ocular surface diseases. Next one, Bilal. So this is the new anatomy of the generation 5th of scleral lenses. This is the newest generation. Just like iPhone launches an iPhone every single year, scleral lenses do the same. So basically what we did is we improved the landing on the sclera. So now we created a tangential angle in order to land better in the conjunctiva. So this is the central zone. So this is zone number 1, zone number 2, zone number 3, and zone number 4. Between zone number 3 and zone number 4, what we did is we did that parallel that I was showing you, that tangential curve, and we can modify this curve, this curve, this curve, and this one independently. So it's basically a free-form scleral lens. Next one, Bilal. So when you're fitting scleral lenses, the first thing you need to start doing is you need to check the central zone, then the peripheral zone, then the landing zones. Those are the zones that you need to be watching when you fit scleral lenses. Again, the zones are completely independent. So if the zones are independent, you know it's a generation 5. Okay? So this is the scleral lens alignment from the Michigan College of Optometry. This is the Ferris University. And basically, look at this. So again, when we started the conversation, we said that the lenses, the scleral lenses land where? In the sclera, right? So this is one of the most important parts that we need to be watching for, right? So, what do you see here? A bubble, right? So that bubble is unacceptable. So we need to close that edge. We need to steepen that edge, okay? Here, all the blood vessels are passing through. There's no impingement, there's no blanching. All the small blood vessels are passing through the scleral lens, and they're not interfering with the fit, right? Whereas here, what do you see here? I don't know if you can see it in the back. But can you see what is going on here?
Blanchard.
Yes, there you go, blanching. Oh my God. I asked who's fit scleral lenses and 2 people raised their hands. But now we're getting the feedback about blanching, about scleral lenses. I love this. Okay, what happens here? Severe impingement, right? So that lens is landing what? Too harsh on the conjunctiva. It's landing way, way, way too hard. Here, again, same thing. These 3 pictures, they usually happen after the post-fit, after the visits, okay? So don't be afraid, fit with confidence. This could happen, and I can guarantee you it will happen, but that's why you have consultants that can help you elevate your skills. So, hold on. I told you this conference was gonna be together, right? It's almost 6 p.m. You see, this guy. Thank you. Thank you. So, no good, right? I was not a good fit. What would you have done? Go back. Back, yeah. Go back. What would you have done with this fit? Here you go. Steepen the central part. What do? You add more sagittal height, right? Remember, we're building a circus tent, and you put an elephant there, and the elephant is like, hey, dude, you're hitting my head, right? So what do you need to do? Elevate that tent. Increase it, raise it. So, no good fit. Here, what do we see here? Blanching, right? So, again, we can't do that. So we need to flatten that part, right? We need to separate the part from the sclera. Yep. Third one, no good. That's not a good fit either. Cool. So this is what we need to be looking for. No touch in the center, no touch in the periphery, and of course we have to touch somewhere, but we have to land perfectly on the conjunctiva. We need to land perfectly on the sclera. Okay, so how do we choose the diameter? So multiple scleral lenses have multiple diameters. I've seen some here that are 16.3, 15.8. There are multiple brands with multiple diameters, okay? But we all use the same philosophy, the same fitting philosophy. So let's say that we have 3 diameters. How do you choose which diameter to use? We're gonna learn this. Okay, so this is something that we always take in the United States. Always. It has to be in the patient's record. The HVID, the horizontal visual iris diameter. It is illegal for an optometrist in the United States not to record the HVID of the patient. Even for soft lenses. For soft AccuView lenses, Alcon, Bausch & Lomb, Cooper, any soft lens, the practitioner needs to measure the HVID. Why? Because if the patient has a very large cornea and you're using a small diameter, even with a soft disposable lens, that patient is gonna stop wearing those lenses because he's uncomfortable, right? And the patient immediately is gonna go to the ophthalmologist and he's gonna say, listen, I tried lenses, they didn't work. I hate lenses. Lenses suck. No, lenses don't suck. Sometimes our skills are not properly done to fit patients. So I highly recommend always taking HVID of the patient. So how do you choose the diameter? You take the patient HVID. Don't worry, you don't need to have a topographer. This is a manual topographer, but you don't need a topographer. All you need to do is an HVID ruler. That's it. And if you don't have HVID rulers, contact me and I'll provide you rulers for free. Okay? So, go back, Milan, I'm sorry. So, 3.5 diameter, I'm sorry, 10.5 visual iris diameter. What do? We have 3.5 mm. So we start with the 15.0 lens. Whereas, if we have a 13 millimeter cornea, we have 3.5. What lens do we choose? 16.5. So always add 3.5 to the HVID measurement of the patient. Go. Okay. We can also see if the patient has lower sags, we're gonna use a lower sag lens. or a 15.0, 15.5 diameter. If we have those keratoconus that you can see them, okay, you can actually see them, use a larger lens, because a larger lens is going to have what?
Bigger sag.
More sagittal height. Great, more sagittal height. Go Bilal. Generation 5 and above of scleral lenses, we found out through research and data that the sclera is what? Toric. Not only the cornea is toric, the sclera is also toric. Why is the sclera toric? So I brought you a study done in the United States about 5 years ago that shows the different corneal sclera profiles of patients looked through an OCT. Look, patient 1, patient 2, patient 3, patient 5. They all have different sclera profiles. So the junction between the sclera and the corneal sclera are different. So they're toric. So every single time that you're going to fit a scleral lens, and that scleral lens is larger than 15.0 in diameter, you should use a toric lens. But please don't confuse toricity as front toricity. This is toricity in the what? In the periphery. We're going to see this. So this was a study done by Greg Denier and Dr. Donald Sanders, and this is a scleral profilometer. This is the newest technology available in Europe and the United States. So this profilometer, what it does, it reads the topography of the sclera. And you can see that the scleras, different scleras have different toricity in different meridians. Okay? So, most lenses in 15.0 are completely symmetric. They're not toric. Whereas lenses above 15.0 are toric immediately. We manufacture them immediately with toricity. So if that patient has more toricity, more meridian than the other one, what do you think the lens is going to do? The lens is going to rotate. And that rotation is great. Why? Because once the lens rotates and you need to use a front toric refraction, you can stabilize that lens better than if it didn't rotate. Is this clear? Yeah? Okay. So, basically, please remember, forget about base curves. I'm going to do a reset of everything you learned in optometry school. We're going to fit scleral lenses by sagittal height. The higher that cone is, the higher the sagittal height should be. So, normal depth, we're going to start with 3,400. Medium depth, 3,800 or 4,400. This is the symbol of microns. High depth, high keratoconus. We're going to use lenses that are higher in depth. So case number 1. All of these cases were done by Dr. and Professor Patrick Caroline in the Pacific University in the United States, in Oregon. So look at this case. What do you see here? Come on, you're going to help me here. What do you see here? PMD. Great, great. What do we see once we fit the scleral lens? What is happening? Next one, Bilal. Look at this. Don't look at the one on the right. This is the final lens. Look at the one on the left. What do we see? Oh, come on, we're doing so well.
Touching from the bottom.
Touch. Where do we see touch? Right? Okay. So what do we have to do in order to compensate that? We need to open this up, right? We need to free that because scleral lenses don't have what? Touch. There you go. So what we did is basically, have you seen those bridges that open up? That's exactly what we did with the periphery of the lens.
Do you mean lift up?
Lift up, yep. Case number 2. Look at this case, 2,400. So this patient is completely sick, right? He cannot even open his eyes. When they fit this patient, he had to wear sunglasses even at night because every single type of glare, light will hurt his eyes. So 6 months after scleral lens wear, look at that cornea looks. Of course, the patient still have Steve Johnson syndrome, right? But look at the visual acuity of that patient. 2025. Did you change that life? Completely, right? Next one. Okay, severe keratoconus. A lot of ophthalmologists around the world, I don't know how it is here in Jordan, but they were doing a lot of rings, right? Correct? If I could have a patient with great visual acuity, with no rings, what would you prefer? Rings or scleral lenses? There you go. Why? Because rings, first of all,
They didn't stop the progression, they didn't improve the vision, they didn't the patient get out from the glasses, and still the keratoconus and the
It's still there.
the nice vision is still even worse.
and it's still there. The keratoconus is still there. And sometimes for us, as contact lens fitters, I would rather fit a cornea that doesn't have rings versus a cornea that has rings. Because sometimes those rings can what?
Pops up.
Yes. Okay? So look at this. Visual acuity 2200. Visual acuity post lenses 2020, 2020. Next one. You see? And you see the rings. They're center rings. They're beautiful rings. But the patient could not see post rings. Next one. Case number 3. Look at this visual acuity 2800. And now the patient is 2025 binocular. Look at that. It's a huge keratoconus. Next one. House for 5 years, and she was even getting a pension from the government. She was counting fingers at 1 meter, and now her visual acuity is 20/40 on the right eye and 20/20 minus 1 on the left. So that patient can have a normal life. Normal life. Next one. Steve Johnson syndrome at the age of 3. Look at this kid. Next one. This is what Steve Johnson does to little kids. Okay? His mom, his dad were completely devastated. Why? Because the kid has an awful, awful life. He could not even open his eyes. So this is how his cornea look pre-scleral lens fit. Look at this. Post-scleral lens fit. Next one. You see those corneas? They're burnt. Next one. Next one. Okay, let's look at this case. So look at this. It's a transplant. And look at that. Look at that graph. Look how much sagittal height. It's a mountain. You can ski on that. It is an elephant. It mixed with a giraffe. Next one. So of course, if we put a scleral lens, we're gonna touch somewhere. So that's why it's so important to have independent zones that you can play around and you can free those zones, lift them up. You can lift them up like the bridge. Look, we were having touch here. And look at the post, the second fit, or I think this is a third lens. So guys, education and technology have no borders. Next time I'm here, I don't want to see 3 hands raised up when I ask who's fitting scleral lenses. Please, please educate, change lives. This is my number. This is my email. If you want to receive free classes, we give free classes every single month. You don't have to pay a single thing. And we use them, and we use those classes, or we get those classes at 8 p.m., 8:30, local time, Jordan. So you're not in your optical store. You can be at home after having dinner, and we record those conferences so you can listen to those conferences and repeat the classes whenever you wish. I really encourage you to change lives using scleral lenses. It was a pleasure having this conference with you. Thank you so much for listening.